that don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my wonderful co-host.
Me. Happy
Melissa.
day to you.
Happy day to you as well. I'm super excited about this guest.
You are.
I've been talking about it all week. So this is a guy who has provided an additional lead source to our business. This is a guy who speaks at some of the masterminds that we've been a part of, always brings a ton of value. I don't want to blow him up too big and then everyone be disappointed, but I'm sure that's not the case. Nick, thank you for coming on our show today.
Absolutely, JD. Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Thank you guys for having me so much.
Yeah, JD didn't add in there that we give gifts and awards to your company.
As your
From us.
Anytime we have a competition with our team, especially on the agent side, we are using Nick's service as an incentive for them to, if they hit their goals, then we are gifting them some of Nick's services. There's a bunch of different to choose from, which I'm sure we'll get into that. Nick is the founder, CEO, expert on a cold calling provider called Lead Mining Pros. I think you guys also do some digital marketing, Facebook ads, and that kind of stuff, text messaging. But your bread and butter is cold calling.
Yeah. Basically, our bread and butter is what I call all-inclusive packages. I remember as a kid, the first coolest vacations you go to are all-inclusive vacations. Right. So naturally, I loved my time at Sandals. And when I created this company, I'm like, these are all inclusive packages. So the main thing we do is we'll pull the list, we'll skip trace it, we'll call it, and we'll text it. And the cool thing about us, like I just had a customer call today. He goes, do we have to use your list? Absolutely not. And actually, I'm a different business owner. I don't want you to use all my services. If you know that you got this ninja list and you got a great source, I'm in 100% agreement with that decision, and I don't try to monopolize any of my services. We're just trying to get leads and deals going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nick, for some of our audience that maybe isn't familiar with you, can you kind of give them your background, where you came from, how you came up with this, and what led you to where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll work on the Cliff Note version because it can get lengthy. But yeah, so I was a restaurant manager for 13 years. And that's really what taught me absolutely everything that I know. The people, systems, management, numbers, elbow grease. There's what I love about work versus your personal life is any problem at work, you can hard work yourself out of it. Right. And the reason why I say other than because you can't really hard work yourself out of your emotional problems and your personal problems. But, with your workload, you can. And that's what restaurants taught me is that, with enough effort, I can fix anything. And so I did that for 13 years. It was a long time. I think I had over 32 jobs by the time I was 32 myself, which was cool. And a lot of people go, well, that's a lot of jobs. And it is a lot of jobs. No arguments there at all. But what happened was I got to completely understand the way 32 different companies operate inside and out. Mm-hmm. So if you really look at what happened, I was really becoming a systems and processes expert. And at the time it was restaurants. So I knew how the Chinese restaurants ran. I knew how the Italian restaurants ran. I knew the fine dining restaurants ran. I knew I ran a Dunkin' Donuts for 4 years. I ran an IHOP for 4 years. I ran high-end sports bars for another couple of years in there. And I got this really worldly perspective. One thing I found, some of the most skillless people you'll come across, no offense to anyone, if you're one of these people, but are like nepotism people, like people that my dad owned the company. Now I own the company. And what happens is, I'm not knocking them, but it's all they know their whole life. They don't know anything outside of it. And what that does is that sometimes puts them in a bubble because they don't have to know now anything outside of that. So one of my big benefits was these 32 jobs that I lost at one point or another, they really were this huge gift on worldly experience, right? I know how a bunch of different things worked. If I just knew how one thing worked my whole life, I'm actually not that versatile coming out of it. So little secret ninja tip to being all over the place. One of the
Get fired from a bunch of jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I started there, and that taught me really training and people and work ethic. And so from there, I ended up applying for jobs. I refused to go back after 12 years. And I was just applying for all these other jobs. And I found this education company that taught people how to invest in real estate and flip houses. At the time, they were a $13 million company, and they hired me to throw all their events for them. Okay. And they had like probably 20 events a year or something. And that was my whole job to start. Within 8 months, I caught 3 promotions, and I ended up becoming an executive over their entire educational division. Okay. Now, keep in mind, I still don't know shit about real estate. I didn't even know real estate existed. I've been flipping burgers for 13 years. You think if I knew about real estate, I'd be flipping burgers for 70 hours a week for $65,000 a year? No, I wouldn't have been. And I was like, what do we do? And then I was like, and I remember being so blown away. I'm like, we sell therapy sessions for people who want to be business owners. And then we put them on the phone with seasoned professionals that, like, I was like, this is a thing? Like, what the fuck is this? And absolutely, it was crazy. Because keep in mind, I've basically been a grunt my whole life, like we're selling people's brains to other people. I swear, it was really cool. And my first call I ever took, I got hired. I'm like a manager. This guy tells me, oh, Nick, man, dude, I made $70,000 on this deal. I didn't even know this guy. He's just calling me and celebrating. I was a part of the management team. And I remember I said, I made $70,000. And I said, did you know that I work 70 hours a week for 52 weeks last year for that much money? That was the first thing I said to him. So that was my first taste of what real estate was. And that was right. Like, I was like, dude, that's like 6,000 hamburgers. Like, how the hell did you do that? So that was my start. And I ended up, what had happened was direct mail was suffering. Okay. And a great tip to anyone running an education company is, if people pay to be with you and the first thing you tell them to do is expensive, even though they're not giving you the money, they act like they gave you the money. Mm-hmm. Right? Hey, I spent $5,000 on direct mail. What happened? Oh, no, you didn't give that to me. You gave that. Yeah, but you told me to. So, what happened? So what I learned very quickly was that people were blaming us for their poor performing direct mail campaigns. Mm-hmm. Okay, naturally, not mad at them. I get it. But it was too high cost. It was the cost per lead was too high. The stakes were too high. The leads were too high. If they fucked it up, they would lose a hot lead, and this one woman called me one day and she was crying. And she said, Nick, I just bought the program for $30,000. I just sent out direct mail for $4,000 and the phone didn't even ring. And she was devastated. And I was devastated. Like, that was half my salary, what she just described to me. That was 26 weeks of work. Like, that meant a lot to me. Like, I'm not like oh yeah, get over it, get back on the saddle. I was like, man, there's got to be a better way. And I was like, what's free? What is free? What is free? And I realized what's free. We're already paying for it. It's our cell phone bill. Okay, we're already paying AT&T $60 a month. So then I started teaching everybody in this program to cold call. Absolutely everyone. We changed all our events from direct mail to cold call. They blew up. And what happened was people were doing direct mail at the events and they were spending the money and they weren't getting the return. So then we found out people weren't coming back to the events. Like, look, Nick, I don't care if I don't get any leads, but if I spend $2,000 and don't get any leads, like that's tough on my business. They kept expressing that to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I implemented cold calling in this huge event. The event blows up. People close deals every event. Okay. And then I get introduced to Dean Graziosi because I basically crafted this cold calling event and I taught this event to Dean. He actually hired me to work for him. I had been out of the restaurant industry for 8 months now, and I'm already working for like the biggest real estate person. And I was like, I knew that I was so thankful to be out of restaurants. Like it was like such divine intervention. So I had a lot of signs from the universe. I'm on the right path. Okay. Then that job came to an end and I'd seen cold calling work. I'd seen it work. So when that job came to an end, what did I do? I went home and cold called every day, 300 to 600 people per day. That was my goal. And just a little ninja tip there. Always give yourself 2 goals. You've got the minimum and then you've got the I'm super proud of myself, right? If I did less than 300, I was a piece of shit, right? If I did more than 300, I was satisfied. If I did 600, I knew I fucking crushed it. Like nobody can argue about, because you know, like that's the way I felt about it. So I always have 2 goals in everything that I do, the minimum and then what my actual goal is. And that's cool because it keeps you performing on a minimum level when you do that. So then with the real estate and with the cold calling, I started calling every day. And I made a deal with my boss that I was going to go live in the online community.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, I'll cold call and I'll go live. And then at the end of 3 months, I had like 5 people calling me going, hey, I see you calling. Could you call for me? Could you call for me while you're calling? And I was like, yeah, it's $200 a week, $200 a week, $200 a week. And I was the only employee back then. And so that went on for probably about 2 months. And I ended up scooping up 20 clients. And I was still the only employee at the time. And then I just say, yeah, it was crazy. I was killing it. And I think that I was probably working like 3 hours a day, making like 4,000 a week, you know, and I could see the numbers working in my favor, but I'm doing everything myself, right? I'm doing invoices. I'm doing the dialing. Every night I'm logging in and I'm tracking all the KPIs all day, every day. This is another ninja tip. I would open up Zoom by myself, set it to record, and I would cold call on Zoom all fucking day long. And then I would watch my recording back at night when it was too late to cold call. I swear to you, I was like fanatical about this. But you know what? I knew that my time was running out to be successful. I was a restaurant manager. That didn't work. I was a manager. That didn't work. I was an executive. That didn't work either. So like, I remember when I left that job, I was like, this is it, dude. You've tried everything now and nothing is working. So, you know, it's time for the next step. So I really dove into this behavior. Now, 6 years later, we've got 30 employees. We're going to hit, I think we're going to hit 1.2 this year. If I'm super lucky, we're definitely hitting 1.1 this year, probably this week. Okay. And million in sales, that is. And we do about 60,000 dials a week. And I don't do any work myself anymore, but deal with clients. And now my main role in the company is extreme customer service. Everyone that comes in gets a welcome call with me. And then every week, all my customers get invited to one-on-one calls with me on Zoom, where we actually cover their campaigns in depth if they want to. Of course, that's optional, right? And normally if the campaign goes great, no one wants to talk. And then when the campaign starts to go south, they book a call. But that's exactly what I'm here for. Those calls are designed to catch problems before they happen. And that's something you can't do in direct mail. Direct mail is, there's no one hopping on the phone from the United States Post Office with you. Hey, buddy, yeah, so, this is how many connected, and this is how many came back. And I think we should make a change. But that's one of the great levels of service that I provide. And yeah, that's really kind of the evolution. And looking back, one of my favorite quotes is Steve Jobs says, you can only connect the dots looking back. right? When I first left my restaurant career, I fucking hated myself for spending 12 years in a career that didn't pay me very well. And then, every step along the way, it wasn't as fun as it is now. But looking back now, I literally call my life a Bible story. The restaurant were my training ground. The education company is where I refined my skills. And then now I'm like in my true form. I am an entrepreneur now. And it's been cool to see that ascension. And it's not a fluke, right? A lot of people are like, oh, how'd you get here? And I'm like, I've been on this journey for 20 years is kind of how I've gotten here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super awesome. And like I was saying before, Melissa and I have used it. I think we have for our personal business, we've done 2 campaigns. We've gotten 3 deals off of those 2 campaigns. The first campaign, we only got 1 deal. Now I say we only got 1 deal, but we still have some of those leads in our system, in their follow-up, doing that. And then the second campaign, we've closed on 2 of those properties. We just resold one of them, listed on the MLS, and resold it a couple of days ago. And the other one is still listed, but it'll move eventually. It's vacant lots, which aren't the sexiest real estate, but they still pay.
But they work. And and that's why I like working with you guys too. Anybody who has results with my service, I also want to get close to, right? It means you know what you're doing. It means if you bring people on with us that you know how to coach them through it, and so I gravitate towards the people that do well with my service. There's people that don't really use it, but still tell their students, and that's great too. But the real ones are like, no, like I know exactly what to do. Call them. I've closed 3 deals, and it's because it's great proof of concept. The number one thing I come across, if you didn't ask this question yet, but I'll ask a question. That is, Nick, what is the biggest problem you see with investors stopping them from success? Okay. And that is they're so skeptical. They're so, and look, I get it. The last VA you hired fucked you. I get it. He clocked in for 20 hours. He never did a thing. And you let it go on for 6 months. I know how frustrating that is, but I'm not that guy. And I have 600 positive reviews online. And I'm not sharing that for me. What I'm sharing is I have tons of clients and they're all amazing, but I can always tell a failure in advance. And that's the person that they may sign up with me, but their whole time they're so skeptical. They think I'm a scam. Like I could tell every message, like, yeah, you didn't do the work, did you? No, we did. Here's the recording. Yeah, but you didn't. No, we did. Here it is. It's like the whole time I'm playing defense, right? And I share that and I understand it. Guys, I get it. I get it. You're not doing this because you're already a millionaire. You're doing this because you're trying to get a millionaire and you don't have a lot of money to invest. But I can promise you, whatever you think you're creating, if you think I'm a scam, I'm going to look like a scam. The leads are going to look uglier. You're going to do less work. You're not going to call them because you're going to think I'm a scam. And like all these things will start to snowball against them. The people that always close deals, and probably just like yourself, you probably signed up and said, I know this is going to work. People, I had this woman call me once and she goes, Nick, you came referred to me by Paul McComas. God rest his soul. I don't know if you guys know that guy, but he had a family of 5 and he died in a car accident. And he was the first person ever to find my service, close a deal and say, Nick, I've actually recently gone viral on TikTok and I need to tell all of my followers about it. He was the first person ever. He actually sparked it and he gave me the idea of affiliate marketing. And then he passed away like 3 months later. And I use his model and it's what's made us so successful now that's how advanced this guy was. But anyways, he came to me and he said, I want to get this in front of my audience. And this girl says, Paul only recommends things that work, Nick. So I know this is going to work. On her first day, she got a property under contract. And I share that story because your attitude is your willpower. Okay. She knew nothing was going to stop this woman from closing a deal with our service. Nothing. But the skeptical person, let's flip it. Everything is going to stop them from closing a deal. So just one little tip is, going in with optimism, respecting your vendor. If you think I'm a scam, don't pay me. Don't pay me until you feel good about it. Then feel good, then pay me so you can feel confident, moving forward.
Well, and you've done a lot of things in your business to I think I don't know that you still do, but you have 100% money back guarantee. If you don't get them the leads, or they think whatever, 100% money back.
Well, yeah. So what that is that I do have a 0 lead guarantee. And what it is it is active. But if your campaign gets 0 leads or even 1, I give you 50% more completely for free, is what I do. And I learned to do that because I do meet with all my clients, and I don't want them, and we can all relate. We have a problem. It needs to be addressed. We're afraid they're not going to address it, so we get ourselves worked up. So like on some calls, right when they start, I just had one yesterday. It was our first week. Our results have been so good. This hasn't happened in forever. This woman had 1 lead. And I was like, and I actually did give her, because it hasn't happened in months. I was like, I'm actually going to give you another whole package because we've been getting such great results. So let's just learn and move forward. So I didn't even do the 50% mark, but I remember talking with her and just being like, hey, this barely ever happens. We're on it. And then we just have to look at the market and look at the numbers. And that's the beauty of it, because as soon as we figure it out, that person's back in the game, which is one of the reasons why I do it, because I know if I put in a little extra effort and then it works, now you're double in. Wow, we had an issue, we corrected it, and I still closed the deal. It's like a triple win, Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Nick, before we get into like the how to cold call, how to set it up, I'm wondering if you can talk to me about some of your guys' calling KPIs. I know earlier you said that your team is doing somewhere around 60,000 cold calls per week. What KPIs are you tracking for that? Do you know how many calls it's taking you to get an actual lead? And then what are those numbers looking like?
Yeah, so I know everything. So it's like, that's one of the things too, that it's like, I'm really crazy with math. Okay. And the first rule of thumb is to log the info.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we log everything. I know how many dials we make. I know how fast they're dialing per hour. I know how many dials it takes for them to get a lead. I know how many dials it takes for someone to answer the phone. I know what my cost is per my employee's dial. Like, I get nerdy with the numbers. And it's because, and let me tell you guys, at first, just track it. Well, I don't know why. Well, who cares why? Track it. Because here's what happens. No number by itself means anything.
Right.
But when you see numbers over months and months, and then you can go, oh, this is never this low. Something must be wrong. So the perk of tracking it isn't that one time, well, I don't know. Why are we tracking that? Why is it important? It's important because now if it dips or increases, we're aware of what's going on. Right? It's not always the tracking itself that is the knowledge. Sometimes it's what's happening over a period of time. So with us, right now we're averaging a dial. The holidays just hit, so we're a little higher on our dial per lead average, but we're rebounding really good this week. But over the last 2 weeks, we were averaging a lead nationwide in about 238 dials. Okay. And then the dials per hour that we accomplish is we dial about 150 to 160 leads per hour. And then our average contact rate is about, here's what I tell people. Below 8% is skeptical. Below 6.5% is atrocious. Above 9% is good. Above 11% is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's kind of how I would gauge contact rate in general. But our nationwide average contact rate is about 9.8 right now, which is huge. One of the things we do to protect our clients and us is what was I going to say? Is we buy 3 phone numbers per campaign. So if you hire us, I buy 3 phone numbers per local campaign. So they're all local to your area. And then our system automatically cycles those numbers out. And that's why our contact rate is really high. I've seen some campaigns at 15%, 18%, and that's just asininely huge. To call 1,000 people and get 180 on the phone or 200 people on the phone is just stunning. And the beauty of the way we work is my price doesn't go up.
Yeah.
I just met with a woman today. She's doing land. She got 90 leads on a $1,400 purchase. The $1,400 purchase doesn't become a $3,000 purchase, right? And I think a lot of people forget that when they hire. Oh, well, you charge by the dial, but if your list is good, it's going to work in your benefit.
Yeah.
If I charged her $100 per lead, that would have cost her $9,000. And $100 per lead is actually pretty cheap nowadays if you're on the.
It's about a third as expensive as our normal lead cost, somewhere between $350 and $400 on our normal lead cost.
Wow.
And I think I can't remember what I did the math back because we track the data, but I think I was somewhere around $56 per lead cost simply through Lead Mining Pro. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And that's what, and one math I'll just do for people too, real quick is, I had a guy, these are funny talks, which one do I want to bring up? There's so many people that are so similar. This guy, he gets we'll use the texting campaign. He pays me $240 for 2,000 complete text conversations, not individual text messages, complete conversations. We get him 8 leads. He's like, man, these leads suck. These leads suck, man. I'm disappointed. And I said, okay, so you got 8 leads for $240. Have you ever spent $240 in real estate and gotten 8 leads before? And he's like, no. And I said, okay. So you wanted instead to tell me, wow, what a great opportunity I have at my fingertips here. Wow. So you're telling me if I bought 4 of these campaigns, I would have 32 leads, right? Because if he bought 240 and got 8, if the numbers continue to average, if he bought 4 campaigns, he'd have 32. And guess what? 4 campaigns is $960 for 32 leads. So one thing people start short-sighting is they get too discouraged while working the leads. And they forget that, dude, even if he bought 10 campaigns for $2,400 and then closed a deal, that deal is probably $30,000. And the customers forget to average out the numbers. We have to look at the big picture. So one number I'll share is the average client says that they close a deal 1 in 12 to 18 leads. All right. So when people want to get discouraged, I got 8. Nothing happened. Well, okay, I understand that. Well, the numbers are 12 to 18. And I always say that means 11 to 17 don't close, just as a reminder. Right? It's like we can't just focus on the $50,000 lead, right? We have to know that certain amount don't either. Now, what I do tell people is when you get to 20, okay, that's when I say you become like a detective and you're hunting for a serial killer. You're like, all right, we got 20 leads. If we don't have a contract, you might have missed something. That's a good rule of thumb I have, right? So it's like, once you hit 20, there should definitely be at least 1 contract, probably 2 or 3, but 1 should close and you should get a couple other contracts. So that's what I tell people. If you got 8, don't fret. Don't fret if you have 8 with no deal. If you have 20 with no deal, begin to fret and then take a look at everything that came in and see, was there someone you didn't call back? Was there a note you looked over, and kind of to go back through it all as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I think that it doesn't matter what the paid lead service is, but a lot of investors, what's your definition of a lead? But 2, they think that paying for somebody to do the marketing for you is like a magic bullet that's going to give you what they're not expecting leads. They're expecting closed deal off of this, and they're skipping and missing that critical point. And that's not the way it works. And not every deal that comes from one of these is just a low-hanging fruit, shooting fish in the barrel. Like, some of it takes work, and you got to put in effort on your side to, 1, get back a hold of them, 2, solve whatever problem they're having, and then 3, see it all the way to the finish line. It's not. I think your service and many other paid marketing services simplify the process for me.
Right.
But they don't completely take away
Right.
the real estate investor.
The workload.
You still have to do the work.
Yeah. What I tell people is we solve the first problem. And when we solve that problem, we create a new problem for you. Your first problem is, I don't have any fucking leads. Okay. Well, I'm going to fix that problem. But your new problem is, what the fuck do I do with all these leads? Right? Because that happens every time. The woman I met with today, 90 leads, even she's like, oh, geez, Nick, I've got 60.
I need a cold caller to call back all my leads.
Exactly. And first of all, that's a great problem to have. But you know what? People will sit on 8 leads. And that's why I like meeting people one-on-one, because I always cover the stats and I go, so what happened when you called them? And 50% of the time, they do not call them. And I warn my clients, I warn them of this. Hiring us will make you get lazy. If you pulled the list yourself, skip traced it yourself, cold called them yourself, and then got them into a lead, you would definitely call that lead. But because I did all this front work and I literally made it one click button for you, I know a lot of people are like, wow, that sounds great. I can't believe people don't call their leads. Hire me and find out. Find out what happens when I actually stick 20 leads in your inbox, and you're going to be like, hey, I'm kind of busy today, but the ones like you guys, that's why the people that close deals, it's simple. Call the leads, have a great attitude. Don't hang up the phone if you're having a good conversation. Like, it's that simple, right? It's going to come naturally. Right. But that's a big hurdle for people, is actually finding. And I try to warn my clients ahead of time. And I almost I call it like demonizing the behavior. Like, look, when you get leads, you're going to have the urge not to call them, or you're going to think the next lead is going to be better. So you won't call this one. You'll just call the next one. Like, don't fall for that trap, Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because my luck is the one person I don't call is the $50,000 bill that I step over,
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's perfect. Okay, Nick. Now, some of our newer investors are going to be looking into trying out cold calling and doing it, and I definitely recommend it. That's like our number one. Like, hey, I don't have any deals. I want to get deals. What do you do? My recommendation is pull some sort of niche list with 500 properties, skip trace them, manually dial. The research that we've done is if you're just dialing off of your cell phone straight, you can get about 50 dials per hour. Maybe more, maybe less. We just single line dial roughly 50 an hour. Call through. So if you got 500 properties on there, between 3 and 10 numbers per, if you can't get a deal by cold calling through that list of 500 properties, you're probably doing something wrong. But the problem is most people won't do the work to get there. Right. And they don't have any money to purchase a service like you. Can we talk about just kind of a brief, if you were teaching somebody else how to cold call, bootstrap it up, what are you telling them? What is the process?
And a couple of things. So the first thing is, and I'll give you guys a link to it. I've been giving out my cold calling course for free that I have. Now, in that cold calling course, it's like 90% mindset, which is what I'll touch on. Okay. Because cold calling sucks. Actually, you know what? Doing anything sucks, right? Especially for the first time. Sure. We'll talk about paintball for a second. I always bring up paintball. If you ever talk to someone that go, oh man, I hate paintball. I hate it. Every time, let me guess, the last time you went, everyone shot the shit out of you. Is that right? How'd you know? Why? Because everyone who hates paintball has the same story. They got shot a lot. But if you're the one doing the shooting, you've had the best time of your life. And that's the story of life. And what I share that to say that the first 3 weeks of cold calling are going to be your hardest because you suck at it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what I will say is there's a couple things to overcome that. Number one, new people have way better luck on the phone than seasoned veterans. Okay. For some reason, the seller can tell that you suck and they actually want to talk to you more. They can tell that you're brand new. They're like, hey, little guy, are you new at this? Yeah, let's talk, This is your first phone call ever, young man? And it's like they can pick up on that. So there's a big beginner's luck with cold calling that I'll share with everybody. You got the energy, as long as you got the eagerness and the attitude, the call's going to go over good. So that's number one. The next thing is, let's go back to attitude. Every person, most people have this story. Oh man, my first cold call ever. That person just chewed my ass. She yelled at me. She tore me up and she spit me out. I don't know why it's always a she, but I ended up, those people are so scared going into the call, they're actually pulling that shit attitude out of the seller. Okay. So one thing that's really weird, and I hate that this is human nature, but it's human nature. Human nature is if you show up as prey, the predator will be there. Okay. Yes. Who's this? Yeah, say something already. Like if you get nervous, they're going to eat you. And that might not even be in their nature. But the more scared you are, the worse they can become. So when you get your energy right and you like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna make some calls. Yeah, I'm just gonna have some fun with it. Yeah. So that's one thing I really recommend. Have fun with it. I created all these wins. And this is the other thing, micro wins. Okay. You want to have micro wins along the way. A closed deal is not the win. In the beginning, a win is making 300 dials. Like we spoke about, I did 300 to 600 a day, right? What's your win? Is it 50 dials today? That's a huge come up, for someone who's never made any, so start small. I want to make 50 dials. I want to talk to 5 people. I want to have 3 conversations go really well. And you know what? When people would say things to me, this is true. I didn't get cussed at for 3 months. For 3 months, no one said a single swear word to me because I'm so fucking polite. That's why. That's the secret. If I show up any kind of way, and people, they'll still cuss you out sometimes. But it took 3 months before someone dropped an F-bomb on me. Okay. And I've been saying it ever since.
There's been 0 days since the last F-bomb drop.
Yeah, right. There's the last employee ass chewing. I love that. But and it's because of the way I carried myself. People would literally hang up the phone and be like, it was so great talking to you today. That's the kind of, those are my wins. I can have this conversation, not offend them, not upset them. And if you have enough positive conversations, you're going to go somewhere. So one of the big wins for me was having an amazing conversation, period. If the other person was feeling my vibe and I could tell they were smiling, I used to hang up the phone off of great calls. And my celebration would be, the cordial investor strikes again, because I would just make them love me, because I used to say the next best thing to a lead is a person that loves you.
Yep.
It's the next best thing to get. So they either want to sell or they fell in love with you. Which one is it? And so that was really my strategy. So that was another thing I would set up. I think having a great script, which you guys can get that script from my website. It's completely free. Okay, I've got all of them, buyer scripts, seller scripts. I even have the scripts of what you should say when you call the lead back and everything in there, and the free script button. So I would totally check that out. And I wouldn't deviate from the script until you're ready. And then another thing I would say is when it comes to the script, again, until you're ready, you follow the script until your own results can get better results than the script does. Don't just start changing the script. Okay. If you make changes, you pay attention. I made a change. Am I getting less leads? That's the craziest shit. We had a guy, my first employee ever, I fired him for this. But my first employee ever dialed the whole day. It was the first day ever in company history that I didn't have to dial. And it was our lowest lead flow ever to this day, even 6 years later. And he wasn't following the script. And he was saying, hey, yeah, I'm sorry to bother. I might have the wrong number, and what's everyone say? Yeah, you got the wrong number. click. You got the wrong number. Click. You got the wrong. Yeah, well, that's not in the script to say I might have the wrong number. It's just it's in the script to say I'm sorry to bother you. Okay. And so it's like he was adding this line in and he gave all these people an out. Okay.
Yep.
So he made a change and he didn't evaluate the effectiveness of his change. Okay. And then, I suffer, my clients suffer. And I'll tell you one thing you guys know about me, anything that hurts my clients is out of here. Okay. If I got an employee who's not up to par, who's not doing the thing, they're gone. And it's not because I'm ruthless. It's because I care about your investment in my company.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not harsh. It's not hard to follow the freaking script, but any deviation can hurt that bad. Hey, I might have the wrong number. Boom, destroyed us. Right. Yep. So if you make changes, pay attention. Now, one thing I did that was really ninja was I pay attention. So only use my strategy if you are the same, but I would change what I said every 5 ways I said it. Okay. And I would pay attention to what got better responses and worse responses. And that's really how our current script got created. Just me doing that over and over again. I'll give you one example of a great line that I discovered. One of them was, I'm not interested in selling. Okay, great. Would you maybe mind taking down my direct line in case anything ever changes? And we say that at Lead Mining now, but we give them your direct line is what we do. And then what maybe mind is, if you think about it, it's a word trap. Would you maybe mind? Yeah. Yeah, you'll take it? Or yeah, you mind? No, I don't mind. Oh, so like no matter what they say, they're saying yes.
Right.
Right. And because I'm kind of trapping them, they don't even realize. So I realized in saying that I had like a 58% yes rate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the hardest fucking thing when someone says no, they don't want to sell, to actually get them to write your name down too, and not just like get up. So I was like, wow, this is working. So then that became it. But if I wouldn't have tried something different every 5 ways, I wouldn't have discovered that ninja way to say it. And the last thing I'll say about that to support changing things is what I've learned about cold calling, and I've done literally probably 50,000 dials myself, which isn't a lot compared to my company now. But there's a certain set of words anyone can use to unlock that person. And it's up to us to find those words.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly why I did it, because I learned even sassy people, you sass them back. They love that shit sometimes. Mm-hmm. It's like, sometimes they're like, oh man, like they're actually just testing you to see if you can hang with them on the phone. My first cold calling ever was in New York City. Everyone was such an asshole. And I started playing with them, like not being rude, but like they're making fun. Oh no. Yeah. Like making little jokes back and stuff like that. And then they'd warm right up.
Yep.
Right after that, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. We've definitely had some experience with that, especially with somebody who will give our cold callers a hard time, like being mean. Then if I come back on the phone or get on there and am like, hey, you were being an asshole to my guy. We're just trying to figure out if you want to sell this house or not. And we made a $30,000 assignment off of one of those calls where they'd been in a text message conversation. He talked to her on the phone. What he was afraid of is somebody outside the area coming in and buying this house. And once he found out that we were real in here and real people, we flipped. And like I said, we ended up the $30,000 assignment on that property.
Well, and that's such a great point. As like a reminder of like, just because they're angry doesn't mean, it might mean that they're really selling, and maybe they really do need to get rid of it, and they're fucking tired of everyone wasting their time, And so it's like the frustration, which is why we don't quit at the first sign of them being frustrated in the first place. And I like what you did there too. I call that humanizing yourself. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I tell my team, if someone's asking, like, is now a bad time? It's like, I can tell you're having a tough day. You want me to call back tomorrow? It's like to say things that are like, we're almost checking them, a little bit in the moment. It's like, hey, we're humans too. I get it. Do you want to do this later? And that even, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm having a bad day. I didn't mean to. And just checking that attitude a little bit, you know, like you just told it, it goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Nick. So before we wrap this up, if you could just kind of break down, like, I can tell you what package we got. I think we got the King Kong package, which was 3,000 American Colt. But can you give us a rundown of kind of some of your packages, roughly what they cost and what they receive from that stuff?
Do you wanna give me the ability to screen share real quick, and I'll just do a little twofer here?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming back in.
Yeah, you're good. I'm going to email my next appointment real quick and just tell them I'm going to be 5 minutes late. Give me one sec.
Sorry, Nick.
No, don't be.
I told you we would run long sometimes.
No, I'm great. I'm great. And then
all right, you should be able to screen share now.
Okay, awesome. And I'll get this showed up and I'll show you guys. Yeah, so these are our packages. I have them in 2 different forms. This is my website, leadminingpros.com. You can see what I brought at the top, the free scripts, the pricing page. That's the page that we're on now. I also have this thing called extras, which is our online courses and our blogs and stuff. But here's all the pricing. This is our all-inclusive packages. These are the most popular things that we sell. We do everything start to finish. No contracts, no commitments, no setup fees, no nickel and diming. You're never going to get an invoice when we're done and it's going to say, oh, geez, we worked harder than we thought we were going to. Because that happens too, right? Hey, we sent out another 2,000 text messages. We didn't expect to do that. We don't do that. What you pay, you get, you want again, you pay again. We don't start billing your credit card all willy-nilly. So here's our packages. Our most popular is the King Kong, like you mentioned. That one does average 12 to 38 leads. And what I try to tell people is if you're doing houses, I'd probably expect 12 to 20. And if you're doing land, I'd probably expect 20 to 35, right? Yeah. Would be somewhere, which is like a good way to gauge it in there. Land does perform better generally. And that's because it's a little bit more left alone. Houses is very competitive. I will say that houses in a suburban area can look a lot like land. Like those land results sometimes on the high side of that average. So if you're in a metro and you're doing houses, your cost per lead could be high. Think rural, suburban for the higher side of these averages here.
Nick, why do you think that's the most popular package? I have my theory on it, but I want to hear if you've looked into why is that one selling more than the other packages?
I think it gets people closest to a deal in a single purchase that's kind of how I describe it, right? You're going to get the other ones like this shotgun. I always say this is a relationship starter. Okay. You're going to get a feel for us. You're going to get some leads. You're going to see if you like working with us on the shotgun, right? It's a great starter, but it's not really going to move the needle. Like I said, you're going to close a deal in every 12 to 20 leads. So this one, if the campaign performs at its top, you're breaking 12, And so and then this is kind of like an appetizer. It might fill you up if you eat too much of it, but it's really just enough to keep you going. And this one is really the biggest bang for your buck. And I'll explain the numbers. A lot of people ask, well, this is 2,000 records and 3,000 dials. So the way it works is after we skip trace the 2,000 records, we're expecting 1,500 come back with phone numbers. Of those 1,500, we then call them 3,000 times, and it equals about 3 touches per person. Now, I know that math also doesn't make sense, but it's only 2 to 1. How could it be 3 touches? Well, between duplicates and people answering the phone and wrong numbers, it's closer to 3 touches than it is 2. Right. Because and like I mentioned, we have a really high contact rate. So if we have a 15% contact rate, here's some great numbers for you guys. If we have a 15% contact rate and I call this list 3 times, that means that we're speaking to 45% of the list. If you do that math, think about how crazy that is. We will talk to almost half of the list over a time period if your contact rate's really high, which is huge. And then we text message everybody as well. So what you're getting with us is this 4-touch system 3 calls, 1 text, and then we send you all the leads at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think so. When we were making the decision which package we wanted to use, one, we want to make a deal off of one purchase, but the real reason is that was the number of leads that we could handle. If we're going up there, we need time to work the leads, time to work the follow up. And I didn't want any of our leads, because somewhere between 45 and 200 leads, I don't want to be the person who's like, hey, I can't call back all these leads. Can you slow the campaign down? So that's the reason we wanted to get the most bang for our buck by being able to do the follow-up with those leads.
Yeah, and being able to work. And that's a good point too. So, and what I tell people is, if you do this full time, I would do the King Kong over 2 weeks. And if you do this, if you have a full-time job, I would do the King Kong over a month, to your exact point, because I also don't want you to have a bunch of leads that then go to the wayside. And the other cool thing about us that you're not ever going to find with direct mail is going to be, you can pause or stop us at any time. So week 1 happens, we get 20 leads, unplug it, unplug it, give us time to catch up. We can pause for 2 weeks. You work the leads, then we resume it. So the other great thing about us is you're literally in full control. Like, you're in the driver's seat with our packages.
Absolutely. So Nick, so for those that are just listening to the podcast, you have the shotgun package, which is about $530, 625 records pulled, 1,000 American cold callers, 500 text messages. Yep. You have the bazooka, which is $1,010 for 1,200 records pulled, 2,000 cold calls. Then my favorite, the King Kong package, $1,400, 2,000 records, 3,000 cold calls. The 10-week Titan, $6,900 for 10,000 records pulled and 5,000 American cold callers, plus the 7,500 text messages. Yeah. That's what you got. Now, I do think it's worth mentioning, if you want to tell them about our coupon code.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I just created a coupon code for them. It's called Shorefront. And what this will do, it's all one word, and I'm sure it'll be in the comments of this. And what it will do is it will save you $1 on your purchase, but we will deliver 10% more of whatever you purchase. So if you bought the King Kong, you're going to get $690 worth of free lead gen added on to that package. And that coupon code is available for life. So as long as you go back to the website and you keep using it, you will get 10% for life added on to anything. And that's a 10% on the deliverable. So on the King Kong, you get 11,000, on the Titan, you get 11,000 records instead of 10. You'd get 16,500 American calls, and you'd get 8,250 text messages. Yeah. It's been a while. But yeah, so you'd get 10% bonus. And I do that on purpose, right? A lot of people go, hey, do you have any discounts? And I said, well, look, I don't want to make less, right? I want to make the same. That's why I give you $1 off. But what I can give you is more opportunities to close deals, which is actually what you don't want to save $500. You want to make another $50,000, right? Yeah. And so that's one of the reasons why I do the bonus too instead.
Yeah, absolutely. So one, thanks, Nicholas, Nick for Lead Mining Pros, for coming in here and showing everybody, talking about the cold calling, what you've seen, your experience. I just want to, so that people know, you don't have to be their only source of cold calling. We have our own in-house cold callers, and we're still taking our not interested list, our correct numbers list. We're taking old leads that we haven't been able to get back in contact with from years and years of CRM, and we're pushing those lists over to you guys to get your American cold callers on the phone. Now, our cold callers are from the Philippines, and we have one in South America. And there is something to say about trying something new. So we've been using foreign cold callers on our own end. So now when we use Nicholas's packages, we're using the American cold callers to hit it from the different angle to see if maybe there's a different response. And we know from previous experience that we tend to have better results with American cold callers. So those people that were not able to get in contact with, the ones that aren't working with our cold callers that are coming off of motivated lists, we push over to Nick's and use that way, and we've had really, really good results with that. So, and everybody we know that's used you has closed the deal. I don't know anybody that doesn't.
Yeah, and I love and that's what I love too, is the Americans really help. I think one thing we're seeing as time goes on, I think the Americans are becoming more relevant because scam culture is higher than ever right now. And I think, when people are picking up and they're hearing that accent, it's just triggering, that news article that they heard, that horror story, that, oh, the scam, the Nigerian princess or whatever it is, And I think that's the other thing that we're really starting to see the Americans take off on is it's another guard you don't have to fight through, right? If the person's foreign, you don't have to overcome that. In some other way, whatever that way is. With the American, I was like, who's this? Who are you with? Man, you sound good. And that being said, our average employee is a female 35 to 55 right now. And that's not me finding females, just so everyone knows. I've been in business for 6 years. My average employee's been with me for 4.5. And the only people that stick around are females.
Yeah.
Like, it's not me. Men, they're onto something else all the time.
Yeah.
But the women, a lot of them are single moms, and they get to chip away on their own schedule. So it's really been cool when you hire us, like the firepower, the quality that you get. And the other thing that we do is we really show up as customer service on the phone. We're not pushy. We're not deeply discounted property language, right? We're like friendly. We're bubbly. Hey, we'd love to talk about your property. And, I thought even if cold calling ever got banned for leads, I think I could poise as a survey company.
Yeah.
Because I'm not talking about buying shit. I'm just asking about the property and all the questions about it. I could say, hey, we're doing a national survey. And you got some time to answer some questions? I actually thought about testing that out just to see if that works better and gets more leads, because when you sound that professional, you can do that. If a Filipino calls you and says, hey, we're doing a national survey, it's like, yeah, not for this nation, you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nick, if anybody from our audience wanted to find out more about you, what you're doing, of course, we can send them to Lead Mining Pros. Where can we send them?
Yeah, leadminingpros.com is the best place. I have access to my Facebook and my YouTube and my free courses from there as well. So, anyone could go there. You can find me as long as you go to that website. And the phone number on there is my cell phone too. So you can reach out or book a call on there. That's really going to be the best place to get a hold of me. And I love meeting my clients. So don't be afraid to book the call because it's always a pleasure to meet everyone, even if you're not ready to buy or you just have some questions.
Sure. And then the last thing I'll say is I want to make sure that, this was created and driven for real estate investors looking for off-market properties, but this is a super awesome resource for agents that agents don't know about yet. And if you're an agent listening to this podcast and you don't like making the cold calls yourself, this is exactly what you need to get these other leads in, because you're able to help so many more people that want to sell for market value and maybe they aren't distressed. There's a lot of those leads that are coming through too. So, put a list of your farm area out there and see if Nick can get you some leads.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Realtors are great. And we've seen a big uptick in them. And I even have custom scripts for them to use when they follow up with the lead too, as well, to get them much better results as well. But no, you're exactly right. And we're way better than Zillow leads, that's for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Nick, thank you so much for spending time with us. I know we went around a little long, but I think there's a ton of value here.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And whenever you guys want me back, I'll be here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You guys have a good one. Right.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.